Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. The next Wasteless World Talks are here with Bill and Kevin and myself to ride to the future on the back of language. And today we have a term which is so common that everybody uses it so frequently. But do we know what does it mean? And the term is change. And I will start with you, Bill, today because I have you on the top of a screen. If you close your eyes and you hear the term change, what came first to your mind, please?
um, a, uh, a flood of different thoughts. It's a huge word. It's a huge word, and we're hearing it so often these days. Um, Everybody wants change, and nobody wants to make the change. Um, Change myself. Certain things I need to change. Change in the family, change in the country, change in and the change that I'm not doing, the change that the world is doing, that uh, there's just so much change going on. It's like, how do you handle all that change?
What about you, Kevin?
Uh, I think of another word when I think of change, and that's entropy. I don't think change is always as positive as you would like it to be. So I think entropy is a gradual decline into disorder. And like Bill says, I think we're experiencing that not so gradual, but quite rapidly. So I think change is these days more about decline than anything more positive.
And can we say that change is transformation? Or this is just one type of change?
They use the word transformation a lot in the communities that I participate in. Transformation usually linked to technology, AI, transforming the way we do business, transforming the way we uh, act, the way we find answers. Transformation. Transformation certainly means change, um, but with a positive turn on it. Transformation. I'm going to transform into or something like that. Uh, what do you think?
Yeah, I think transformation. It's a good selling word.
A good selling word?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to transform the neighborhood. We're going to transform the economy. We're going to transform your life.
You know, frequently we ask what is the opposite of change?
I was just thinking that.
We do it every time, so.
Um, no change. Um, Stable. Um,
I, I don't know if then opposite exists because change is omnipresent. It is every moment is change. Every breath, everything is change. So do we really have an opposite of change? Because probably we never need it. So I know we can say stagnation, for example.
Yeah. I think the opposite of change is change. It's just a different kind. It's just a different kind of change. Change is unavoidable. It cannot be stopped. Things change from one state to another. It's one of the most natural processes in the world. So if we want to change from change, the only thing we'll get is change.
if you look at it at two levels, one might be the natural level. So I'm aging as I sit here in this chair, so that's a change. I breathe and it transforms my breakfast into energy or whatever. That's a change. But if there is say, I'm envisioning a part of a forest, right? That just nobody chops any trees down. Um, it, okay, let me take it in a different direction. How about if you just do the same thing all the time, right? You follow the schedule, you get up at the same time, you speak to the same people, you go to the same places every day, every day. No change. There's no change. You don't read, you don't think, you just, go through the motions. And, I'd be tempted to say, boy, there's no change. It's just exactly the same as it's been every day. So maybe there's a couple different levels that we can talk about change.
There was this movie, how the men wake up every day. I don't remember the English name.
What was it? Groundhog Day. Yes. But even in that, there was change because he realized that he was going through the same motions and he was trying to get out of it, if I remember correctly. So you could see his mind. Everybody else was going through the same motions and said the same things, but his mind was trying to get out of it.
And I think that it is exactly at the point of view of the change. You mentioned the trees and the forest. For us, if we go there one day and the other day we don't see almost any change or we do not recognize. But if there is a stone which is here for millions of years, for him will be the change every time when it opens its eyes, and so on. So it is maybe the perspective. It is, I say all the time, if you would like to ask for change, be the first who changed. Because if you are not the one, the others will not see a role model in you. Whom should they follow? So I think change is important, but it is important to understand that firstly, it must be us change before asking anybody else.
I think change could be seen as another word for movement. But in order for there to be no change, there has to be no movement. Nothing can move. Because as soon as something moves, things change. So to have no change means nothing can move.
Just at the start, at the beginning, I was thinking that when I arrived last week to Singapore, I make a short trip around the hotel because I was tired, of course. And there was a beautiful image of a moon on the sky, and then the skyscrapers and so on, and there was the moon. And it was there not the second day because it was rainy, but the third day as well. And then when I go back, I sit on the window on the airplane, and he was there. Firstly, I was thinking it's just a light reflection, but it was there almost all the time. And I arrived to Plzeň. I went the first time at 4 a.m. to work, and it was there. And it is so interesting. And at that moment, I realized when we are speaking about the changes and so on, and about the nature as a role model for growth and degrowth, I realized that the moon is generally showing us every month the stages of growth and degrowth, because it's smaller and bigger. Of course, I know it's not, the moon is the shadow, but from the perspective, it's like teacher who every month repeat the same lecture, and we just don't listen.
Yeah.
Anybody, any idea why coins in our pocket we call change?
Yep. I don't know. I was just thinking the same thing. Change has different meanings. It's the coins in my pocket.
We don't call it change. We call it little money. When I will translate it from Czech. So something like that. We call it little money. And in German, it's called as well not change. Kleingeld is in German. So it's the same like Czech generally. I don't know why we call it so.
You have in Czech this expression we have in English that change is as good as a rest.
Change is as good as what?
A rest.
A rest?
Yeah. Have you heard that expression? It means that if you're doing the same thing every day and you need a holiday, but if you just change that routine, it's as good as resting because it's refreshing.
That's true. That's true. If you, in fact, that's what a getaway weekend or a vacation is. You've changed your routine and suddenly you're seeing the sky differently.
You know, I had in few factories, I have implemented talks about nothing. So something similar as we do, just the word is not there. And successfully, it is a growing meeting, the only growing meeting which has more and more participants every time. And I have here a visitor from bank and they would like to do the same. And you know what is the hardest? They cannot prepare. So they have to change their routine in having no routine, no plan, and nothing for that. And it is so difficult for them because they said, but we need to have some plan. I said, no. And it is so difficult to change the mindset into this very simple message. And the question is, who is more happier? The people who are in a routine, so let's call it no change, or the people who are changing. I am happier because every moment is something new. So I love the change, same as I love questions. And I cannot imagine today to do things the same way in the next moment.
So that's a very positive outlook. But what if the change is negative, is harmful? What if your country was being invaded, for example, an example we've all thought about recently? Um, then change is not necessarily good, right? Although in the long run, it might be because it might mobilize people's thinking about the way things need to turn out, and so they may, get together and so on. But change is not always good. Would you agree with that statement? Change is not always good.
I will.
Definitely.
And
I was thinking of the Japanese, where it's a modern society, but they've managed to keep a lot of traditions, a lot of very old traditions. And I've never been, so maybe I'm imagining more than there is. But it seems they have a good balance between tradition and change.
Before I work for the Japanese, I will agree with you. Today I do not, because we in Czech say that every coin has two sides. And before I joined them, I saw only the shiny one, the nice one, the accuracy and efficiency and everything. There is a hidden side which is not being presented. It's like in a factory. They will show you only the nice things. But if you ask, can I see the garbage bin? It's not the place where they would like to take you. I think that the great about Japanese is that the culture is there. But the bad about it, if they go outside in other country, they think they can change the people into Japanese. They tried in Czech. Nobody succeeded. Not a single company, because they will never change Czech into Japanese, even German ones, which are very close to Japanese from the way of thinking. No. But what every time works in Czech Republic, the Czech workers make fools out of Japanese. That works every time. It's just enough to go for a beer. Czech people, not me, are used to drink 5-10 beers on an evening. The Japanese hardly 2. So it's easy. It's easy. Uh, but generally, coming back to the change, I even think that some of the, we call it the negative changes, like COVID, a few years ago was here, have a lot of positive changes. To,
Right.
I think it's generally like a trigger. The change is the trigger. The question is if we understand what it stands for.
Right. Right. That's that's well put. And I'm a big advocate with all these technological changes and all these society changes that we're experiencing now, is that everything has two sides. And you can make a list of the negatives of COVID, for example, but you can also make a list of the positives for COVID. And it's not a short list. So um, when people say, "Oh, AI, oh, it's awful, it's bad, oh, I'm never going to touch it," right? They're uh, they're not recognizing that AI has good sides and it's got bad sides. And I don't think that we can really deal with the ethics and the governance issues around anything until we recognize that there are good sides and bad sides. You know, you look at the smartphone, and everybody loved the smartphone, right? And now, 20 years later, we're beginning to say, well, there are some drawbacks of being buried in your screen all the time. So everything has two sides. I agree, Michael.
I think that generally it is all the time on the depending on the perspective as you see the change. But even the perspective, it's with us. So our understanding of the topic, our understanding of the change, the way if somebody explained to us the change, you know it from the factories. Uh, have you noticed that yesterday proposed Jack Dorsey, which is the founder of Twitter, the original founder of Twitter, he proposed to abolish IP rights, intellectual property rights, which means your books will be not your books. Your movies, your screenplays will not be your screenplay. It's like it's in Czech fairy tales. If there is an evil in a game, he asks the person who need help to sign with blood, just a piece of blood. You put it and sign with it. That's exactly what they are asking for, you know. And it was official. Official means on Twitter he asked for that, and Elon Musk immediately says yes, and then it was scaled up. Uh, so it's crazy how little triggers like one word on Twitter is right now resulting in something like that. I have today a very interesting discussion with one of the leading economists here in my country, and he agreed. He said he spoke about AI and so on, and but finally he agreed that it's exactly about the fire. Good servant, but very bad master. And only if we do recognize that it's a tool and we learn how to use the tool, then it will be fine. But until if we let the tool become the master, that will be bad for everyone. And unfortunately, it's so you can get so easily addicted to the to AI because it's so clever in some ways that this is the danger of AI, not the answer, but the addiction of technology.
I think if you ask those who are developing AI, as far as they're concerned, there is no IP anyway.
Yeah, you are right. Why he asked to abolish it? Because they already steal the information. They just would like to make it legal. That's yeah. I know about it.
In not to get political, but in this country, in the U.S., there are a lot of rights that are being challenged by the administration, all to the end of of the giants acquiring what the little people have, taking it away from them. So when you mention the IP rights, that's another in a long, long list of things that they're going after.
Yeah.
You know, and I like the example of a new credit card which you get. You get all the time the information, don't tell anyone your PIN code. The first time you enter it in a machine and you enter the PIN code is not yours anymore. It is spread within millions of other people. So, but do you think that, I don't think we can control AI, but we can control ourselves how we will use it. That's a different thing. But it is a question, can we still change the behavior in this direction?
I think the same way that we are changing the behavior about waste through language, through communities like this. I do belong to another community. It's called the AI Conversation. And we talk some about the technical, but mostly it's about the application, how if you ask different large language models, LLMs, if you ask ChatGPT, give it a prompt, give the exact same prompt to Claude or to a dozen others, you get a different answer. And so it's incumbent on us to understand what you've just been told and to pass it through a filter, a very sophisticated filter in our brain, either one that says that just doesn't pass the smell test, or one that says, I think I'm going to check with somebody else. Or you know what I mean? It's and that's a level of sophistication I don't think that a majority of the people have at this point. Maybe schools will begin to teach it, but at this point, if ChatGPT tells you something, it's fact, it's truth, right? And in fact, it's funny. So we talk about the ways that AI lies to us, just out and out lies. So, for example, one of the people in the community asked ChatGPT to explain something. I don't know what it was. And ChatGPT came back with several paragraphs of an explanation, very rational, well thought out. And in there was a quote that 47% of, I don't know, of the people who do this, whatever, came up with a quote. And so the guy went back and said, ChatGPT, will you please tell me where you got that quote? And without any apologies, ChatGPT said, uh, well, the explanation needed some figures, so I made that up. Admits that he lies, right? So how do what caused the guy to go back and ask for the source on that figure? It's a level of mental sophistication when dealing with AI. So at any rate, I just thought I would share that.
I was listening yesterday or day before yesterday to a podcast of one British university about Industry 5.0, of course. Four speakers have no idea what they are talking about, but they are all experts. And the crazy part was that one of the experts, or two generally, who has been invited as guests, they said they refer to the document which I mentioned by European Commission, where is at the end is a reference to MicroRada definition of Industry 5.0. Not a single one read it, not a single one. And the crazy follow-up was that today in the morning, somebody comment on one of the definitions on the Mirror, which was published January 21st, 2018. The original is 1 year older. And he wrote there, it is premature to talk about Industry 5.0. and explain why that there is the revolutions of AI and whatever. And I asked him, do you know that this document is 7 years old? And Industry 5.0 is 10 years old. Until when do you think it will be premature? You know, it's like if you will tell to your kid who is 10, you are still a baby, or you are still in somewhere. So it was interesting. And I do worry, you mentioned education and so on. I do worry that education is not preparing for the critical thinking today, because even the teachers and professors, I don't say that all, but many whom I see in connection with Industry 5.0, they are simply adopting the lies. And many of those know about it. They do it intentionally because they get paid for saying misleading information. So I don't think we can trust education system to improve the critical thinking and reasoning.
It's not black and white. I have spoken with some, for example, education you mentioned in this AI group. I just got this lady who has been in education her whole life. She's in, and she talks, you know, like you talk, that is, how it's changing, what needs to change, critical reasoning, how to teach it, and so on. And she's agreed to review and help me with the education chapter in the in the upcoming book. I have somebody who's also agreed to do that with the chapter on food and agriculture and on healthcare. I'm looking for the other two. Um, here's one of the things that holds us back. There's something called the theory of constraints, right? So we can all sit here and talk about how wonderful it's going to be, but somehow we never get there, and that's because there's lots of forces, a lot of them by the giants, to redefine what we're saying or to put obstacles in our way. So the theory of constraints is happening all around, and one of the things is tradition. That word was used about 20 minutes ago. Tradition might be the opposite of change. Um, Tradition is very well established in the healthcare field, very well established in the education field, almost every big industry. Tradition. And in fact, when I thought of that, the very next thought behind it was when I used to go into a plant and be given a plant tour by usually, you know, a big guy. And invariably, we would stop in front of somebody. I probably told you the story before. And the CEO would say, Bill, I'd like you to meet George. He's been with the company for 35 years. And I used to say, well, George, congratulations, you know, shake his hand, uh, share a few words. But at some point, I started to say, whoa, take my hand away. You've been in the same place. You've come to work probably in the same route every day. You are doing pretty much, you sit in the same office every day, 35 years. And that's where the word change comes in because you only grow during change, right? So that puts too nice a spin on change because it's not easy and it hurts sometimes. But change is the way we grow, and so that's a positive thing. But a few minutes ago I said there's two sides to everything. There's a pros and there's a cons to everything. We named a couple of examples like COVID. Please tell me what the positive um, aspect of Russia's invasion into Ukraine. Is there anything positive about that? We need to challenge we need to challenge our statements. And I said there's always a pro and con. And then I'm thinking maybe there isn't all the time. What do you think?
There are positive aspects to the invasion in Ukraine, but I don't want to get into them here. But
Well,
there,
it's a perspective. From your perspective, might be different from somebody over in Moscow's perspective.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
True.
But I think the thing about change is that we can embrace change, we can be a part of change, or it can be forced upon us. And I think the problem is that maybe I'm getting old, but it feels more and more that change is being forced upon us without us being given the time to really consider if this is good for us. So there's good change, bad change, but when it's never ending change, we don't actually stop it just to say, wait a minute, before you go any further, I just want to think about this.
We talked about it in some part before. And when we spoke about it, ChatGPT 4 is introduced on Monday, and on Friday is 5. We have no possibility to adapt. Simply, we cannot. And I think the conclusion was, so we don't adapt. We are just users of it. Change a little bit, looks slightly different, and so on. One question to you. We have 7 minutes left. One question to you. Do you think we can stop change? Can change be stopped?
Okay, so you stopped it with your Unplugged Day. What is that? The International Disconnect or whatever that is.
Yeah. Zero Data Day, Global Zero Data Day.
Zero Data Day. So if we unplug and we don't check the news or Facebook, or that's stopping it. Even if it's only, well, maybe it's not stopping it, it's pausing it.
Yeah.
But still, it's a change.
And
it's something different.
And I think we cannot stop change. Even if I look outside on the great teacher nature, the role model, it does not stop change. In winter, it slows down, yes. In a harsh condition, it behaves differently. But the evolution never stops. The change is omnipresent. The next day will be slightly different than the day before. And this is why I don't think we can stop change. We may be living it. You can see in media, you can hear it everywhere. The people speak about the speed of change which we are living right now in. But it generally is the same like before. In the Middle Ages, they feel exactly the same. They just don't have the internet, but somebody came, I don't know, somebody with a knife and kill whatever, a neighbor. The change was all the time there. The time is measured the same way for thousands of years, maybe, or very similar way. So it's all the time the same. The day has 24 hours. And still we feel like the change is so fast. But is it so? Or do we become so slow?
So I think that quote is the speed of change today is the slowest that you'll experience for the rest of your life.
Yes. You mentioned that one of your friends that I think, yeah.
I think that it's not so much the speed of change, but the volume of it and the stupidity of a lot of it. Yeah. And in Europe, we're going to be blessed with having an electronic euro this year. And that's a big change. And that is not for the benefit of anybody living in Europe, that we have an electronic euro. And that is change, but it's bad change.
Everything has pros and cons.
Yeah. I mean, the changing of the seasons is something we embrace. It's a pattern in our lives which we've adapted to, and that's how we work. And so it's not that we're not creatures that dislike change. We embrace change, but some of the change is just pure stupidity.
I think to your comment, Bill, of good and bad side of change, that what is changing is the volume or the mass of people who benefit from the change. When there is united, whatever. So people are united. The entire, for example, say Singapore, I mentioned it before, the people unbelievable trust government because they have a reason to trust government. Do you know any other country where people trust government? I don't. Some African countries look like that. They are dictators, young guys usually, but the changes they do look quite logical, quite interesting. The people, most of the people, let's say, favoritize these changes. But what I have seen in Singapore, I have never seen in any other country. Of course, in my country, when I was a child, there was a communist country. The party was responsible for everything. The great thing about it, you have not been responsible for anything. So we steal. I take, you know, there is a lot of Czech proverbs from that time, like, if you don't steal at work, you steal at home.
Yeah, you're stealing from your family.
Exactly. So, but what I think is that is shrinking the number of people who benefit from the change. Before it was mass, right now, very few benefit and the rest see it as a negative. You just mentioned the digital currency. Who will benefit from them? The people who work with the digital data, the people who would like to control everything, but the majority of people who must use it, not us. We have still Czech crowns and we did not adopt it Europe. So the majority will just have to follow. It's nothing else. It's nothing else than a new form of dictatorship.
Yeah.
Absolute control. 1984, George Orwell. Exactly that is happening right now. It looks like that these old books like Karel Čapek, RUR, and George Orwell looks like manuals. The people who read it say, wow, that's a manual, I will use it. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
The European Commission is leading the way.
We have 1 minute left. So I would like to thank you. What was not change? The fact that we did not start it and we have to end already. That's habit. But it is so. No matter whether we speak a big word or a small one, it's all the time the same, you know. And it was very fascinating discussion. And I'm looking forward to have the next one in 1 week time. I apologize for last week because I was in plane at the time. And yeah, so have a nice time, free of waste and wasting in all its forms. Stay safe, be free, be human, and enjoy and be the change. Be the change. Because during the midday discussion, Use Abui, who is ambassador in Tanzania, he says something very interesting. He said, change is the river. You cannot stop it.
Is the what? Is the
river? The river. Is the river. And we are the water. And he's a very young guy, but it was interesting. He said, we are the change. He is right. So let's be the change. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.